Central banks are some of the most powerful institutions in your life, and yet you were probably never taught to question them. They don't make flashy headlines, they don't run for office, and most people couldn't explain what they actually do if you asked them. But make no mistake, central banks control the price of your money, the direction of the economy, and the real value of everything you work for. They can create wealth out of nothing or wipe it out almost overnight. And the strangest part? They don't really answer to you. This is the story of how central banks came to dominate modern finance, not as neutral referees, but as active players in a game they helped design. It's a story about quiet power, financial engineering, and the illusion of stability. And once you understand where it all began, you'll never look at your paycheck, your savings, or your debt the same way again. Let's rewind to 1694. England was broke. The crown had just fought an expensive war with France, and the treasury was empty. What emerged wasn't a bank meant to serve everyday people. It existed for one main reason: to fund the government and make money doing it. That's the real origin of the modern central bank, not as a guardian of stability, but as a lender to the state. And that power only grew over time. By the 19th century, central banks across Europe followed the same model: privately owned institutions with special privileges. They issued currency, controlled reserves, rescued governments in trouble, and in return gained enormous influence, often without real democratic oversight. In the United States, the path was messier. Americans were deeply suspicious of concentrated financial power. The first two U.S. central banks were shut down after fierce political fights over corruption and elitism. For much of the 1800s, the country had no central bank at all, just private currencies, speculation, booms, busts, and violent financial panics. Then came the panic of 1907, so bad that banker J.P. Morgan had to personally organize a rescue. That crisis scared Washington. In 1913, Congress passed the Federal Reserve Act, creating the Federal Reserve System. It was sold as a decentralized network designed to stabilize the economy. In reality, it became a central authority with huge control over interest rates, credit, and the money supply. And this is where things get uncomfortable. The Federal Reserve isn't a typical government agency. It's a hybrid, part public, part private. Its board is appointed by the president, but its member banks are privately owned. It doesn't rely on taxes. It funds itself through interest on government debt and fees charged to banks. It makes decisions behind closed doors that affect millions of lives without any direct voter input. So who does it really serve? Officially, the Fed has a dual mandate: maximum employment and stable prices. But in practice, its actions often benefit the same financial institutions it's supposed to regulate. In 2008, it didn't just lower interest rates. It printed trillions of dollars, bailed out major banks, propped up asset prices, and absorbed toxic debt. In 2020, it did it again, buying corporate bonds, flooding markets with cash, and inflating asset prices, while ordinary people were told to be patient and wait for things to trickle down. Here's the deeper truth. Central banks don't just influence the economy, they shape it. They pick winners and losers. When rates fall, stocks surge. When rates rise, markets panic. When money is printed, asset owners get richer. When rates go up, regular people pay more for mortgages, credit cards, and car loans. And despite claims of independence, central banks are deeply entangled with the financial system they oversee. Their leaders move in and out of Wall Street. Their policies often align with market interests, and their language, vague, technical, and carefully worded, keeps most people confused and disengaged. Today, central banks are more powerful than ever and less accountable than ever. The Fed, the ECB, the Bank of Japan, the Bank of England. These aren't neutral institutions. They're the architects of our monetary reality. Since 2008, they've reshaped the economy completely. Ultra-low interest rates became normal. Quantitative easing, once unthinkable, became routine. Trillions were created to buy government bonds, corporate debt, even mortgages. Asset prices exploded, Stocks soared, real estate boomed. For people who already owned assets, it was an incredible run. For everyone else, it was inflation dressed up as prosperity. Housing became unaffordable. Wages lagged behind markets. The cost of living rose while savings earned nothing. And most people never connected the dots. They blamed politicians, bad, luck, immigrants, anything but the invisible hand controlling the money supply. Here's the hard truth. This system isn't designed to free you. It's designed to keep you moving. Central banks encourage spending, reward borrowing, punish saving, and keep the wheels of consumption turning. Every intervention is framed as stability, but it's not your stability they're protecting. When things break, central banks step in to save the system, not the people. Look at 2020. Markets crashed faster than ever. Within weeks, the Fed unleashed over $3 trillion. Stocks rebounded. Billionaires doubled their wealth. Meanwhile, millions lost jobs, small businesses disappeared, and renters faced eviction. What was saved wasn't the economy, it was the illusion of strength. Debt grew. Dependency deepened. And this matters because when central banks distort the cost of money, they distort everything. Saving becomes harder. Retirement feels impossible. Risk is mispriced. Bubbles inflate. Crashes follow. And worst of all, most people don't even realize what's happening. They don't see that the interest on their loans, the return on their savings, the price of their home, all of it flows from decisions made in rooms they'll never enter by people they'll never vote for. Officially, central banks are independent. In reality, they serve the system that created them, banks, markets, and the financial elite. The revolving door between Wall Street and central banking isn't a conspiracy, it's a career path, and the dense language of central banking exists for one reason: to keep outsiders out. But you're not an outsider anymore. Once you understand how this system works and how central banks enforce it, you can start stepping outside its traps. Financial education isn't just about saving or investing. It's about power. It's about realizing money isn't neutral, inflation isn't random, and interest rates are deeply political. Real freedom starts with understanding the game. That might mean owning assets that can't be printed, building income not tied to debt cycles, letting go of the idea that endless growth equals prosperity. Because growth fueled by debt and nonstop consumption is just